Welcome back to the Church of Obelisk. My name is Yon. Today we're going to talk about the position 5 role, and I've prepared a tier list here for you. This is the first of several tier list videos I'm going to make for patch 7.30, and as I said, position 5 is what we're looking at today. So we have 5 categories here. S tier, these are the best heroes of the patch. These are heroes that you can comfortably spam. If you're looking for some sort of hero to pick up if you're new to the plus 5 role, you should probably choose from among these heroes, or possibly from the A tier. A tier is heroes that are stronger than average, but not like really overpowered like these heroes. And then B list is heroes that are sort of the middle of the pack. They're fine, not too strong, not too weak. C tier is more situational heroes. You can play these heroes if you really like them, but if you're looking for a new hero to pick up, probably avoid these heroes. And then the D tier is just heroes that are either very weak in general or not suited to the position 5 role, so avoid picking those. We've got 3 heroes in the S tier. OMNIKNIGHT, very powerful hero. He has strong win rates in all the brackets, and you see in the higher brackets he's picked a lot. The reason for that is primarily Heavenly Grace. Heavenly Grace is an amazing ability, gives a strong dispel that's very important, means you can dispel stuns, and also give that status resistance. So especially if some sort of carry that's a melee hero, a strength hero, such as for example Sven, one of the strongest carries of the current patch, he's going to benefit so much from Heavenly Grace. Because you can remove all the stuns from him, and new stuns and other disables are going to last a lot shorter with that 50% status resist. And that bonus strength, especially on Sven, is also incredibly powerful. But really, any sort of melee carry is benefiting heavily from Heavenly Grace. Next ST hero is Bane. Now, the thing about Bane is that he's not quite as strong at the lower tiers, but you know, even down here in Herald Guardian, he still has a decent win rate. The main reason he sort of falls off in lower tiers is because Bane can't really flash farm, he can't really push lanes, and it's all about sort of single target. He's a very strong laner, which again is more important in higher tier, where the game is just a bit more aggressive. So if you're, let's say, Legend or above, I think he's a great hero to pick up if you want to learn position 5. Then we have Silencer. A long time he was kind of a noob trap hero, but nowadays he's actually very powerful. You can see his win rates are a bit higher in the lower tiers, but even at the highest tiers he's still very solid. Like 52% win rate with this huge pick rate is a strong indication that we have an extremely powerful hero here. And he's a strong laner. He's got a huge harassment potential with Glaives and with the Cane Curse. And then obviously he has great teamfight potential with Global Silence. And he can do all that without really having any items, which is why he's a great position 5. But he also actually scales decently well with items, which is why we sometimes even see him in higher position roles. But I do think 5 is his strongest role. So our first hero in the A tier is going to be ABADDON, very similar to OMNIKNIGHT, but just like a slightly weaker version of Omni as a plus 5. You have Phonic Shield, which just like Heavenly Grace can provide a strong dispel, but the problem with the Phonic Shield is that it does not provide as much value outside of that strong dispel later on in the game. Because all it does is, you know, absorb a little bit of damage, which in the late game is not very relevant. Whereas Heavenly Grace gives you that status resistance, that extra strength, which Phonic Shield just doesn't give you. But the advantage for Phonic Shield is that it has a lower cooldown, only 6-second cooldown. And also ABADDON, big advantage of the plus 5 is that he's basically unburstable because of Borrowed Time. Borrowed Time can also be cast while you're stunned. So even if, let's say, your entire team gets ravaged, you can just Borrow Time and a Phonic Shield your carry, and then fight back, which is something that no other hero really offers. So ABADDON, a very solid support, but also suffers a bit from the same thing that Bane does, that he just doesn't farm very fast, and is not able to use space on the map as efficiently, but he actually still has a high win rate even in Herald, but because he's just very straightforward and easy to play. Next is going to be Treant Protector. Also somewhat similar in that he has a nice saving ability in living armor, but not with that strong dispel. He has a very complete kit, strong team fight ability, pretty tanky, pretty durable, decent laning. He has very high base damage, so you can easily deny creeps and he can harass people quite well. He's hard to kill because he can run in and out of trees. His farming is like not super strong, but not terrible either. You can usually get some items, and he's just a very solid hero overall. And next we have everyone's favorite, Chen. Quite a strong hero in the current patch, and especially the reason for that is his new shard. Allows you to take over ancient creeps. So this is something you basically always want as soon as it's available. So this makes the hero very powerful. But of course Chen quite hard to play, so don't be intimidated by those fairly low win rates in many of his brackets. Here he has 56.8%, but also very low pick rate. So it's still not a hero that many people play, but if you're a good Chen player, this is a great patch for Chen, so you can feel free to pick him. And if you want to learn a more complex +5 hero, now would be a good time to start learning some Chen. And if you do want to learn some Chen, you're on the right channel, because I have lots of Chen content. I have one guide for in the current patch and lots and lots of Chen videos from older patches that are still mostly pretty relevant. The next one is going to be Ogre Magi. Very simple, straightforward hero, but he's strong. He has solid win rates across all the brackets. As a +5, there's always the question of whether you want to buy Midas, and typically the answer is no, because when you buy Midas, it takes quite a while until you get that second item that actually benefits your team. So probably go for the less greedy route. But if you find yourself in a game where you get a good start, or you think it's a game that's going to go very long, getting Midas is very nice on Ogre Magi. But the thing about Ogre is that he just does a lot even without any items. Especially Bloodlust, such a strong buff for most carries and mid laners. So in the early game, obviously, you're very tanky. You just run at people, hit them, and sort of force them to go back. And very strong laning presence. And then later on, you basically mostly a Bloodlust bot. You run behind your cores and Bloodlust them. Then occasionally get an multicast off. So Ogre Magi is like a bit simplistic. So maybe sometimes not as fun to play, but he's very strong. And especially if you're someone who is not familiar with the +5 role, maybe you just play some +5 occasionally because you need some role cues. Picking a hero like Ogre Magi is a great choice, because there's just not that much you can do wrong. And even if you feed it a little bit, you're still providing lots of value to your team with Bloodlust. Next, your Shadow Shaman, very solid hero, lots of disable obviously, and has a great shard. Pretty much always want to pick up the shard. And yeah, this hero benefits a lot from cast range, so if you can get like an ether lens, that is great, but even without that, he's still a very solid hero. Next up is going to be Venomancer, not the most solid of heroes, but he's quite strong. He can be played in various different roles. Primary role is probably offlane, but he can also work as a 5. It's a bit awkward because you don't have any real like stuns and such. You're just basically providing damage, but that can also be strong. And later on, you provide lots of map control with Plague Wards. Also a +5 hero that can farm really well. So it's kind of an unorthodox +5 hero, but he can work quite well, has pretty decent win rates, which is why he's in A tier here. Similar thing can be said for Enigma, a very greedy +5 hero, but also very powerful if you can get away with it. The idea with Enigma as a +5 is like you deny some of these range creeps in lane, thereby giving your other core in your lane, if you're playing +5, that's typically your carry, a XP advantage. And then you can go and jungle a little bit on the side. You don't want to go full-time jungle, but you can jungle a little bit and get some items for yourself. As I said, very greedy kind of +5, but if you have a carry that can sort of stay on his own, does not need much babysitting, then Enigma is a very powerful option. Then finally we have Vengeful Spirit, a very strong hero right now. She has very good win rates, but surprisingly she's probably not best suited to plus 5 at the moment. I think her best role currently is probably offlane. She's a hero that actually scales quite well with items. Her new Agnum Shard is also quite powerful and more of a core role, and the Agnum Scepter is incredibly strong. But as a plus 5, obviously it's going to be hard to farm a Scepter. But that being said, she's still quite good in the plus 5 role, especially that recent change where another swap now does 50 damage and gives damage reduction for 3 seconds. It makes it a lot harder for enemies to focus down Venge after a swap, and this way you can often swap people and survive. And the damage, 50 damage is not a lot obviously, but it prevents blink. So that's a nice little buff there. And yeah, Venge, I think she's still pretty solid as a 5. She's not the strongest laner, so that's a big disadvantage, but you offer a lot of bonuses to your team, like Wave of Terror, minus armor, bonus damage from Vengeance Aura, and having a reliable stun is always great. So a pretty solid hero, but I think benefits more from having a little bit more farm, being like the plus 3 or 4 role, which is why she's only in A tier here. Next up, the bulk of the heroes are in B tier. Got Skywrath Mage, lots of damage output, but not much else. A very solid hero. Visage, another one of my favorite heroes. Kind of similar to Skywrath in the plus 5 role, that his main role is just to do a bunch of damage, which is a bit unusual for a 5, but can work out quite well. But unlike Skywrath, you do a mix of magic and physical damage, so that's nice to have. But yeah, Visage can be quite a strong laner with his Soul Assumption. If you have some sort of carry that wants to play more like a fighting lane, Soul Assumption can be very powerful. Lots of damage output to that. If you have more of a defensive, passive carry, Visage is not as strong in the lane. But if you do have some sort of tri-lane situation, Visage really shines in those. But even in a dual lane, he can still do quite well with a more aggressive kind of carry. The thing about Visage is that he's not actually very item dependent, so you can get a lot done on Visage, even without items, as long as you get some levels. So and as Visage on support, you want to try to find some levels for yourself. You know, sit in an empty lane for a little bit, maybe try to get some of the tomes, and you can have a good time. Lion is probably the most overrated hero of the patch. He has very, very high pick rates, but his win rates are not good. But he's still fairly solid. Having close to 50% win rate with 20% pick rate is actually quite impressive. So that's why he's here in the B tier. And then we have Winter Wyvern and Ancient Apparition. These were sort of the kings of the previous patch. Now they've been nerfed a bit, but they're still very solid. But they're more like a counter pick heroes. So Winter Wyvern, great against Zoo heroes, great against Meepo, and Ancient Apparition, great against heroes that rely on regen and healing, like an Alchemist or a Morphling. But as sort of generic support heroes, they're only sort of average. Then we have Dark Willow, who's a fairly solid hero, but I think she fits more in the plus 4 role. We have Elder Titan, strong team fight, strong lane, a bit hard to play, and sometimes can be a bit awkward, but you know, he's fine. Then we have Kotl, it's kind of similar hero to Lion in that he has a very high pick rate, but his win rates are not that great. Although come to think of it, I should probably put him ahead of Lion, right? The thing about Kotl is that he's played in lots of different roles. And even seen mid Kotl quite a bit recently. But as a 5, like he's decent, that's why he's in B tier, but it's not anything really special. But let's actually put him like ahead of Lion here. There we go. And then we have JAKIRO, solid hero, nice, easy to play hero, great in the lower brackets, sees high win rates down here. But as you get higher, as win rates go lower, because Big disadvantage for JAKIRO is that all of the spells have very long cast times. So if people react properly to this hero, he loses a lot of its power. But it's the fact that offers a lot of wave clear as well as some control, decent laning, makes him a powerful hero in the lower ranks, but in the higher ranks not quite as good. I should probably add that this tier list is based primarily around like high level pub games, so things like, let's say, Divine and higher, where people like already sort of know how the game works, and balance actually matters a lot, whereas in lower tiers balance doesn't matter as much. And I'm not really talking about competitive pro games here, because people who play in these kinds of games probably not watching this video, so it's more about pubs here. But yeah, more emphasis is paid here on the higher level. So if I was making this tier list for more sort of the average Dota player who's probably somewhere around like Crusader or Archon rank or something, JAKIRO would be in A tier, but as it is, he's down here in B tier. Then we've got the Squirrel. She's fine, nothing special. She's a good hero, but not anything great, and probably wants a bit more farm priority than POS 5 gives. Disruptor, this pretty average hero in a pretty average tier, nothing too much to say about him. RUBICK, more typically played as a POS 4, but also definitely viable as a POS 5. But similar to Lion, he's a bit overrated. He's picked too much, his win rates are not great, which is why he's down here in B tier. But if you're a good RUBICK player, you can still definitely make the hero work quite well. Clockwork, more typically a POS 4 hero, but also works as a 5. Why not? Dazzle is a hero that, with the recent changes, actually wants a bit more farm priority, and to be able also to make use of that cooldown reduction and such. So I would probably put him more as like a POS 4 hero. Viper is kind of a niche POS 5 here, but he can work quite well. He's an excellent laner, and if you're in a kind of game where another toxin is going to be powerful, Viper is going to shine. He doesn't, of course, offer any sort of stunts, but he has a bunch of slows, and yeah, I think he's probably a bit underrated as a POS 5. Next up, you have Shadow Demon. Just nothing particularly strong going for this hero, but he's fine. And then lastly, in the B tier, we have two Frosty heroes, Crystal Maiden and Lich. They're very classic, straightforward support heroes. They're not bad, but they're not great either. So that's why they find themselves here in the lower B tier. The win rates in lower ranks are, fine, but up here she's kind of a bit underwhelming. Similar thing goes for Lich. Now into the C tier, who you should avoid playing in POS 5 role. IO, it's just kind of hard to make work in pubs. Phoenix probably wants a little bit more farm, but he can play him as 5, but he's not that great in the role. Undying is kind of meh. You can play him as a core actually these days, but as a 5, I don't think he offers quite enough. Brewmaster, similar story, great as an offlaner. You can make him work as a 4, but as a 5, you just want a little bit more items, because you really want that Aghanim's in particular, and as a 5 that's hard to get to. Grimstroke, kind of underwhelming hero, can still do fine in certain combinations, but on the whole, probably a bit weak. Dawnbreaker probably wants more farm priority. As a 5, she's playable but not great. As I'm making this video, I'm actually realizing that Warlock actually has pretty decent win rates. Record is not high, but win rates, around 50% most of it is. If you look at the Pro Tracker, his win rate is not that great. It's 44.7%. But if you're not playing at the highest level, Warlock, I think, still does fine. So probably I'm actually going to put him into B tier. I don't know, somewhere in the middle of B tier. Of course, has very strong team fights, but the problem is he has no stunts outside of the ultimate, and he's just kind of a very straightforward hero. Like, as long as the enemy team can play around the cooldown for chaotic offering, Warlock can be a bit underwhelming, but especially in lower tier games where people are not as good at, you know, taking objectives and using timings, he can be quite powerful. Then what's the next one? Bounty Hunter, probably not that great as a +5. Down here, Tricopter is playable as a support, but I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that good as carry either, for that matter, but that's a question for another video. Oracle actually has like sort of decent win rate. I think it's also actually too low here. I think actually we're gonna put the Oracle also in the B tier alongside our friend the Warlock. And you know, he's fine, but not anything special about him. Same thing for Witch Doctor, but here we actually do see that the win rates are quite low, so I think he's quite well suited to C tier. Wind Ranger, she needs more farm priority as a 5, she's not that great. Black in general is not that great. And I've got Takis. The problem with Takis is that he's very much a specialist hero, but it's not really worth learning Takis, because whenever Takis gets strong, he gets nerfed pretty fast, because no one likes Takis except Takis players. So I don't think Takis is a hero that's worth learning. He's not terrible in the current meta, I think, but probably want a little bit more farm priority on him. Then Ench is a hero that can sort of do alright in competitive gaming, but in any sort of normal pub play, she's not that good. She's a great laner, but after the laning phase of the +5, she doesn't offer very much. Yeah, so probably should be avoided playing that hero. And then D tier, we've got Pudge. Pudge actually is sort of semi-decent as a +4 right now, I think. But as a +5, I would not pick him. Nature's Prophet in general, very weak right now. Don't pick him, wait for him to be buffed. And Snapfire, she's just not that good. Don't play her, she just needs a couple of buffs to really be relevant again. There were of course many patches where Snapfire was strong, but right now she's just very underwhelming. Don't pick her. Okay, so that's my tier list. As I said already, if you want to learn +5, pick up one of these heroes and you can just spam it. The good thing about +5 is that you're usually picking first anyway, so you don't need to have a deep hero pool. You can just like spam one main hero and then have maybe like 2 or 3 backup heroes in case that main hero gets banned, and you're gonna be fine. You don't need to know every hero. So this has been my +5 tier list video. More tier lists coming up soon. And if you want to learn more about Chen, click the video on the screen. That's my Chen guide for 7:30 and Obelisk Filling. I'll see you there.